when it comes to the live performance of this, we've got the video done and we've got the audio synced up. The live performance system I use is more, it's a bit like a DJ VJ tool. So I'm putting all the audio clips into scenes, and I'm putting all the videos in, and then I'm splitting the videos across multiple surfaces. I use lots of projectors. That's why I've got these 3 screens here, so I can see if I had one in the middle and then maybe the walls wrapping around the audience, I can have a continuous image that I can test on here. And I'm sending MIDI triggers into Ableton to trigger scenes and effects. And then I'm sending OSC triggers from Ableton, which I'll show you a bit more detail in a minute, to Resolume. And then Resolume, I can use 2 Resolume machines at the same time if I need. If I need more than 8 outputs, I can send 16 different visual video surfaces if I want. And then it's about how to join them all together and how to use the video content in this to suit the space. Every show is designed for the space, so every show is different. And also the way I approach things is like a DJ. So I'll have every project I've ever done, so maybe 100, 200, I don't know, 100 or so different visual projects, all accessible at any point in time. So I can choose at any point in time to play any visual project, any audio, to mangle things up, to even DJ. I'll have CDJs as a sort of backup in case the laptops explode or whatever. But sometimes I'll think, why not play The Prodigy at the end, and then just do it and just play some video that I've never tried. Just have fun with it. Because I used to DJ before I did all this stuff, so I want that freedom to be able to like interact with the audience and not have a predefined set list and just have fun with it. So that's why I've set my system up like that. I have done shows in the past where I've taken my synths and pedals and done it that way and tried to do more like the traditional live thing, patch design and all that stuff. But it means I haven't got the headspace to do the visuals. And also it means that I'm get a bit more locked into that, like predefined, what the set's going to do. I can't just change it totally at last, on the fly when I'm doing the show. So I've sort of gone back to this really simplified Ableton setup that allows me to play anything at any time, have fun with it, jam around. I've got a little like live drum machine and a granular synth I can jam with, and it leaves me enough headspace to be able to mess around with the visuals. So I've got like something playing here. Oh yeah, this is a project with Jazzer Giles, sort of cellular automata type systems. I love all these. Again, it's another natural system. Like we looked at Fibonacci sequence a minute ago. This is like a Fusara algorithm. So it's a sort of emulation of a slime mold, interacting with a really sort of linear, sort of 90 degrees system. So it's sort of like an organic system and a very mechanical system interacting. So you get this really beautiful sort of computational sort of emergent thing happening. So as well as having these sorts of glitchy ones I can do on here to affect the visuals, I can also filter in a whole bank of different, so I'm going to pause it again. I've got these banks which basically link to a whole suite of effects in Resolume. So you can see on this one, I've got a ton of effects on there. Whenever I trigger the iPad, you can see it, activating some of them. But what I can also do is I've got a filter cutoff here. And if I play this one, if I solo this one, so I've got some sort of glitchy thing on here. And whenever I do the filter cutoff, you can see a whole bunch of different effects are coming in on Resolume. But most of those effects are switched off. So what I have on Ableton is this matrix here of a whole ton of different visual effects. And what happens is if I turn one on, There you go. It's a good example. So the way I've tried to set it up is so that, there's lots of different curves. You can see that polka dot curve is not the same as the edge detection curve. So as I'm filtering in, the effects are activating it at a different rate. And the reason for that is that I've tried to set it up musically so that if I'm tweaking something with the audio, I want the particular visual effect to appear to enter in a way that feels correct with how the sound is entering. So that's why there's different curves essentially, and I'll show you how the curves work in a bit, but that's a whole separate thing. The routings is another question. But basically from a, musical, artistic point of view, it's like when I do something like that, how should that look with a particular sort of effect? And I've done my best to achieve that. And because I've got this whole bunch of different effects, as a matrix, I can apply multiple of them at the same time. So at the moment it's just this triangle thing, but I can do edge detect and triangle, for example, and then you get these edge detected triangles. Or I can do, I don't know what this one's going to do. That's on that one. I can do some dot thing, or that doesn't go into all of them. But anyway, and then I've also got different effects that can apply to the different screens. So I can say one screen does one effect and another screen does another effect. So it starts to become really flexible in terms of what effects are happening in what part of the room, how the effects sync to when I'm filtering something in, how that actually happens. So it means that I've got this quite fun system that I can just jam with, which everything, the BPM gets fed through to Resolume, so things are staying in sync generally. And but then I can have all this fun with sort of adding layers and effects and sort of developing the videos. And I've got a lot of videos that I have favorite types of effects to apply to, and I'll always experiment. Every show I'll try something different, and because it's lots of possibilities, I'll always end up trying different combinations and new things, and that again keeps it sort of fun for me. Basically, it's a little bit like this sort of DJ. It's like it's VJ tools basically. I'm not doing the live. A lot of people do this, like we were talking about Ryoji Aikida, who I'm pretty sure he'll be doing generative audio, generative visual. It's all super tightly synced and really precise. Mine's a bit more rough and sort of, what happens if I throw this thing over there? What happens if that goes on the ceiling and this one goes there? And what happens if I play this piece of music I've never tried before with the thing? And I'm DJing basically. I'm DJing and I'm VJing and I'm messing around with these systems that I've made. Let's have a little look at the routings, because that's part of the process. So the way this works is I'm using these Max for Live devices by Matisse Kneppers, which allow you to send information from Ableton over to Resolume. So basically what you do is you get these devices that send a parameter from Ableton to a parameter in Resolume using OSC. And in my case, I'm putting these devices next to these macros so that I can then map, the MIDI values of this drum pad here, or the MIDI value of this filter cutoff, for example, across to the macro, and then the macro goes to the sending device, and then the sending device sends the OSC message, and the OSC message arrives in Resolume and does the controlling. And that also allows me to change the relationship between the filter cutoff, for example, and the visual output in Resolume. So that would be why there's hundreds and hundreds of these. I've got, this set's got very heavy. And actually, Matisse and his colleagues made a sort of more efficient version of this system. And I've got so many hundreds of them in here, I haven't got round to using it, because it's going to be a massive job to just redo everything. So again, I have the composition, which is the main effects on the big screen, but then I also have in Resolume I've got the rear screen layers as a separate bunch, and then I've got left and right, and then duplicates of those. And then I also have another Resolume machine so that I can have another set of all the layers if I want to add more outputs and more complexity, which we did for the last show for the Barbican a couple of weeks ago, I had to use the 2 machines to get, we were using 7 different surfaces. And then one of the tips I've got for this sort of approach is in Resolume, to send, rather than having, you can't plug 4 projectors into one laptop because there's only a limited number of ports. So what you can do is, there's various of these sorts of things where you can take one 4K output, which here you can see in Resolume, this is one 4K output, and it's split into 4 1080 panels. And this top left one is taking the composition only. The top right one's taking layer 6 effects. The bottom left is left, and bottom right is right. So you're basically splitting one 4K output into 4 separate signals, which this box does. There's a whole bunch of these different things that can do it. It's like a video wall controller, basically. And that means that you can get 4 outputs from one port. So then, obviously there's 4 ports in here, and then you can get 16 outputs from one machine if it's powerful enough. But yeah, Matisse Knepper's devices are what enables all of this. And then over the years, I've just been adding and sort of developing, I'd love to have this sort of effect, or I'd love to have this sort of, be able to do this sort of thing. And then just adding it in, and then just working on more visual projects, more music, just dropping it all in, and then just having this visual, sort of audio-visual jamming system.